Thanks everyone for joining us this morning. I can see some local folks and some folks from around the world. Today we have Mark Bain from the Fred IT Group sharing with us their journey. I've known Mark getting on to 3 years now, I think. He came to a SPC class in Melbourne. Apparently I wasn't very nice to him in class, but we stayed in touch anyway. And we started working with you guys to launch your first train again almost 2 years ago, I think. Anyway, it's a great story. Mark likes to tell us both the good, bad, and ugly. So hopefully people will find it useful. I've opened up chat so you can drop questions in there. Mark, if you're happy to take questions as you go, and I'll try and keep an eye on the chat for you and interject as well. Other than that, I think over to you, Mark. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for the introduction, Em. Appreciate everyone turning up this morning. I hope you find this informative. Certainly through the Meetup sessions over the last year or so, one of the most commonly requested topics is someone to provide an example of their journey to SAFe. And so Em's invited me to talk about our journey, which, as Em suggested, I'll be the good, the bad, the ugly. I'll be open and honest. There are some things I'll say that are probably a little bit confidential. I won't leak any corporate secrets, of course, but would prefer that we keep it in the group. And that way I can be confident and share a real story. So a little bit about myself. The photos probably give it away. I'm currently the General Manager of Technology for the Fred IT Group. I look after strategy, business transformation, architecture, cybersecurity, platform services, which is back-end, networking, architecture, containerization, and procurement. I hate to admit, I have a 30-year career in technology. It's gone very quickly. Been a CIO, corporate IT, consulting, built up my own company, ran that for 7 years. It was actually a BRW Fast 100 organisation. Unfortunately, sold that off and didn't make $1 million. So I had to keep working. Also been a project manager and started my career as 10 or 12 years as a developer. On interesting personal fact, I'm the president of the Woolamai Beach Surf Lifesaving Club. Absolute passion of mine. It was my son on his first day when he graduated or got his bronze medallion on patrol together. It was probably the proudest day of my life. So I donate a lot of time to the lifesaving movement. The agenda, a little bit about Fred IT Group. We won't bore you with lots of corporate slides, but there is a section on product and our customers that we will talk about for some time because it's fundamentally important to understanding the journey that we took. I'll look a little bit at the tipping point. As Em said, it's been a 3-year journey to this point. And about just over 2.5 years ago, we really found ourselves with a spot of bother. Then we'll talk about what we did. And it definitely was a customer first focused strategy, structure, process play, very much a whole of business transformation. We'll look at how we tore down the traditional organisational silos. And then we'll spend time, and I'm hoping we'll get lots of questions. And as Em said, she'll chime in when people ask questions. And I really hope we do get some conversation going during the retrospective stage, because I think that's where the value of this presentation is. So Fred IT Group, you've probably never heard of us. Probably excuse the name, to be honest. It stands for Fast, Reliable, Efficient Dispense. anytime you've walked into a pharmacy, there's probably a 50-50 chance that you've actually used our software, or the pharmacist or the team in the pharmacy use our software. And if you ever get a script, there's 90% of the scripts in Australia go through our data exchange. No one ever knows. But if I wanted to, I could pretty much find out any individual's entire script history, obviously with all the necessary privacy conditions. We have over 8 billion scanned scripts in our database. We're owned by the Pharmacy Guild of Australia, and we're a controlled entity of Telstra Health, and the CEO also has a share. Been going for about 27 years now. So we'll spend a little bit of time just on this piece, because this is important to understanding how we went from the traditional silo structure into our value streams. Our customers, you probably recognise some of those brands. For those of us in Melbourne, I received a photo this morning. There's a full page ad of Priceline pharmacies, and you'll notice in the ad, they've actually got that image on the bottom right. There's a mobile phone there with a QR code. That software is actually our software. So we dispensed the first electronic prescription in Australia recently. Obviously with COVID, it's accelerated telehealth, as we know. And if we ever needed a success story of the change that SAFE has enabled in the organisation, the transition to e-scripts is absolutely the golden child example. There is no way we could have done what we did without SAFE. We completely built an e-scripts platform within 6 to 8 weeks, and the organisation actually did it early, and our quality was good. So we'll talk more about that later. But if you've got the age, have a look and you'll see it sitting there. Amcal, Priceline, Sigma, Ramsay Pharmacy, they're our big corporate customers. We also, of course, have the mum and dad pharmacies, the more traditional, where 1 or 2 people might own 1 or 2 pharmacies or a number of little pharmacies. They're all customers of ours. So it's split across the corporate world, the big brands, as well as the mum and dad pharmacies. We also big customers for the state government. You think private and public hospitals, and any hospital has a pharmacy, so they're our customers as well. So we have small independent pharmacies, we have the big corporate enterprises, and we have our government. So that's the way, if there's a takeaway from this slide, it would be that they're the 3 groups of customers, if you like. Our products. Pharmacy is effectively a retail store and becoming more and more a retail store. So think what happens in a retail store. You have point of sale, you have back office, and the only difference with a pharmacy is you have the dispense piece. So it's a relatively simple store with the complexities of dispense added. And some of the big pharmacies have robots for packing. So there are some unique challenges to pharmacy when it comes to the software that we provide. Over on the right-hand side, the bottom right of the screen, you'll see a number of our products for the government customers in particular. If you've ever heard of SafeScript, that is a piece of software that intercepts the message between doctor and pharmacist and helps to prevent, and does prevent, people dying of drugs of dependency overdose. It's a fact that more people die of drugs of dependence overdose than kill themselves on the road, which is a horrific stat. So a number of years ago, after much lobbying by a number of families, including Heath Ledger's family, he died of a drug of dependency overdose. The Victorian government invested in SafeScript, which intercepts the message between doctor and pharmacist And if you've been either stealing script books or doctor shopping, which is a real issue, or particularly in rural Victoria, when you near borders, people were going back and forth between New South Wales and Victoria, or Victoria and South Australia, and getting lots of drugs. Coding's a great example. And unfortunately, killing themselves. There's a great story, I won't go through it all, but recently a lady wrote to the Victorian government and thanked them for SafeScript, because she walked into the pharmacy with a handful of scripts one day, and had every intention, this is a true story, she actually, I'm not making this up, had every intention of walking down to the local lake and killing herself after dosing up on drugs. SafeScript intercepted the message and realised that she had been over-prescribing on these drugs, and the pharmacist had a chat to her, got her some help, and her children have a mother today because of SafeScript. So if you ever need an example of a good news story and where technology can save lives, that's it. And that's being rolled out around the country at the moment. So key takeaway from this slide, we've got corporate customers, we've got small independent mum and dad pharmacies, we've got products in the pharmacy store, as well as the big script exchange and the value added, if you like, platforms and services that we're building on top of that, such as SafeScript and e-prescribing. I won't go through all these points, but we were absolutely at a tipping point. It's just on 3 years that first met Em. But in June 2018, we had a real wake-up moment, and looking at all those questions, 100% wrong answer. There's not one answer that we could look at as an organisation and say, yes, we were doing well. We had the opposite answers of what you wanted. As an organisation, it was a basket case, and financially, the results were going backwards and had for some time. It wasn't a great, happy place to work. Customers weren't happy, product quality, all of the things, the usual things that you'd see. We were doing it very badly. So we took some time to reflect, and it was a very honest reflection, and we will, and I'll explain how we did that in a moment. I'm going to go through all these bullet points. But if your organisation looks a little bit like this and having these challenges, then no doubt you'll get something out of this presentation. We had one of our biggest problems was no strategic alignment at all. And every time someone came up with a clever idea or a new technology, we chase it. We're like a group of Labradors chasing a big shiny ball. It really was hopeless. Never hit a deadline, slow to market, all of the issues that indicate that you have an organisational issue. Our customers were unhappy. Our structure was very siloed, no communication or very little communication across those silos. Even within silos, there was lots of arguing, complete confusion of who does what. It was a mess. No one was accountable for anything, but everyone was accountable for everything. It was very, very confusing. And what that meant that at the end of the day, we were producing quality products that were of very ordinary quality. And that was being reflected in our market share was going backwards. I'm happy to announce that has now plateaued, and we're starting to see an uptick in our market share again, which is a very positive sign. Very unhappy team members. A lot of team members have been there for a long time. We did need that cultural change to occur. Didn't have a lot of turnover. Within itself was probably a bit of a problem, to be honest. So there was some that have adapted to SAFe, and there's some that haven't, and the ones who haven't have left, and that's been both by choice and in some cases we've had to make some difficult decisions. Certainly from a process, there was 1,000 processes, but none of them were aligned and none of them worked together. So we were the absolute basket case. So what did we do? Enough about the problems. We got our accounting group, Grant Thornton, in, and having worked for KPMG, I can probably say this, and if there's any from the the consulting groups, please don't take any offence in this, but we used Grant Thornton because they didn't walk in with a filing cabinet full of processes and shiny PowerPoint. They actually just kept it very simple. And if you've ever heard of, read the book Playing to Win, that's what we used and that's what they recommended. And it was more about the conversations that we had than a framework. And there's 5 questions in that framework, which are what's our winning aspiration? Where will we play? How will we win? What capabilities must we have? And what management systems are required? We also got an industry expert in to work with us, and that review went on for about 4 to 6 months. I worked with the CEO, the CFO, and the board, and there were no questions you couldn't ask. It was absolutely honest and open and incredibly constructive. We spoke to our customers, and we really did talk to our customers. We ourselves and also got some the industry consultant to go and talk to our customers. There were no surveys as such. Again, it was about the conversation. We obtained advice from everywhere we could. And as I said, it was a structured framework and it was lightweight. That's what made it work for us. I'm not saying it'll work for everyone. That's what worked for us. It was all of the time we come back to the customer and what does the customer want and what do we need to do? What products do they need? We looked at our structure, a complete redesign. This was probably the part of the journey that took an extremely long time. We still don't have it right, and in all of these structures, I don't think you ever get it 100% correct. And there were some decisions made for a variety of reasons that probably hurt us. There was a couple of cultural decisions and a few ivory towers that we couldn't quite break down, but some of them adjusting now, which is good. And it was about being focused on what we need to deliver for our customers. And there was barely anyone in the organisation. We had 250 people who didn't end up with a new position description or a new title. Just as a note, we did completely go safe with all of our titles. So top to bottom, the organisation changed, and as much as possible, probably 95%, we took the roles straight out of Safe off the shelf. We're absolute about minimising handoffs, and I can hear Em's words and if you've been to any of our courses, so you don't change structure until you work with Safe a little bit, and then restructure once you know more. That wasn't going to work for us because of just the mess we were in. So we restructured at the same time we launched Safe. It was a lot of pain at the time, but definitely worked. One of the things that was fundamentally important in our restructure was the CEO wanted to know who was accountable for what. The old silo mentality meant that it was completely confusing who was accountable, and that was his number 2 rule. Number 1, make sure it was focused on the customer. Number 2, he wanted to know who was accountable. We then looked at our process. We looked at a number of models. We selected Safe. The board was very clear that they wanted external advice. The CEO and certainly myself were very clear that we did not know better, and we were going to break down those ivory towers as part of this and ensure that we selected a vendor who we felt would push through the change and certainly had a proven track record. And Em and her team absolutely fitted that criteria. Financial commitment was there from the board. They put aside a sum of money and allowed us the flexibility to go and spend that and very appreciative of the support financially that the board put into the safe change. And without that support, I don't think it would have worked. So the organisational structure, we were traditional, sales and marketing up front. We still are confused between sales and account management, but we might sort that out one day. Product management, so sales went hand over, product management interpreted in their way. They throw it over the wall to build, and we build something, hoping to get it right based on some back of the envelope requirements. We'd hand it over to operations as best we could. It literally would get thrown over the wall like the tradition of the old school dead cats. Operations was about 40 to 50% of the size of the company, believe it or not, and covered everything. And it was very confusing as to who was doing what. They were doing their best, but they just couldn't succeed and win. And then at the end of the last wall, CEO, finance and HR, and finance, of course, very unhappy because we weren't making money, and the CEO unhappy because our customers weren't happy. HR not happy because our team wasn't happy. So that structure, there's probably no surprises in any of that. It is the traditional model. And just note the little icons of the team members at the top in the different colours there. Because they represent each of the different functions, and when I show you the next slide, it'll demonstrate what we did. Again, welcome questions at any point through this presentation. So this is what we did. We went completely to value streams and arts, agile release trains. There are 3 release trains. eHealth, which look after the script exchange, are adopting SAFe very slowly, to be honest. We haven't formally launched a train in that division for a variety of reasons, but I will come to that in a minute. Kaisen, which you all know what that stands for, was our first train, and that was we did the hard yards. There's no doubt that was a difficult change, but a very necessary change. And as you can see with the different coloured icons there for people, we took the team members that were from each of those divisions and actually put them in the value streams. So we completely broke down the silo. We could argue that we created 3 silos, but I think the culture has changed that doesn't actually happen anymore. So there's very little about blaming each other for things that go wrong, because you're all in the one operating unit, be it a train. So if something's gone wrong, you're all accountable. Yes, there's a GM at the top of each of the trains, but the team as a whole works together. And that was a fundamentally important piece of our change, because you're all in the team. You can't blame ops for not supporting the customer properly, or blame development for not building a good product, or blame product management for not talking to the customer correctly. It's because you're all in the one group. Our structure loosely represents the arts as well. We do have a structural issue, which I'll talk about later, to address. But putting everyone in the train meant that we broke down those walls. Everyone became one team. Everyone became an important link in the delivery of product to our customers.
Mark, hello. Sorry, it's Vinay speaking. How are you?
Hello, Vinay.
I just thought I'd give you a chance to pause and ask a couple of questions. So, breaking down silos. I think we've all heard of Jack Welch, haven't we? In his quest to break down silos and work together. So, this is a fundamental change in the organization. So well done in doing that, because this is not easily done in most organizations, as we know, don't we? When Jack Welch with GE, right? So that's good. Now, Can I ask, from a transformation journey like this, when you're applying such techniques, which would have been kind of newish to people and people not working in science, was it very clear at the outset what success looks like?
Success, thank you, Vinay, for giving me a break. I appreciate that. Success was defined by the customer. So if the customers were coming back to us and saying that we were starting to produce a better product, a better quality product, a product that was more functional, that we were listening more than we were, then that was successful, because everything else, the financial results will come eventually. The team member results will flow. And our ability to deliver faster with a better quality result will flow from that. And so it was all about, will this make our customers happy? And every important decision that we made, the first question we'd ask would be, how will this affect our customer? What will be the impact on them?
Okay, so you're putting customer first. Are you suggesting that the organization was not as customer-centric as it could have been?
Absolutely, we weren't. We were more about ourselves. We were more about protecting silos.
Okay, so you turned the whole thing on its head, really, didn't you?
Yeah, we basically took the organisation like this and went like that.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's awesome. Thank you for that, Mark. Very appreciative.
Thanks for the question, Vinay. Do welcome them as we go. You'll note that the products that you saw in the first slide are outputs of each of the trains. So not only from a people perspective, a team member perspective, did we put everyone into trains. Our products also related to a train, rather than all being piled in together and everyone arguing and screaming about their product being more important than the other, and those inevitable fights about capacity and whose customer's more important, and at the end of the day it actually ends up who's got the loudest voice wins. We split the products to each train. So the pharmacy products, point of sale, dispense, the things that I spoke about earlier, to run a pharmacy, your back office, your dispense software, all went to the Kaisen Express train. So that made it very clear who's accountable for delivering the product and who's accountable for delivering the right product to that set of customers, be it the big enterprise customer or the small independent customer. So the CEO got what he asked for. If he had a customer who would ring him up and complain about XYZ feature or product or the service or the support or marketing, he knew where to go. He goes to there's two GMs that look after Kaisen. He'd go to both of them and say, XYZ customer has a problem, sort it out. None of the, we'll hand it to ops or we'll blame product, blame development. It's all the one team. And that absolutely has resulted in a much better organisation to work in. Our customers are happy, our financial results are turning around, and as I said before, our market share has stopped dropping and in fact is starting to tick up. I'll skip over eHealth for a moment. Talk about Kyushu, which is actually a 6-star train from, I think it's Japan, if you look it up. We put all of corporate services, some organisations might call shared services, back office services, into a train. A number of reasons. It gave them a home, and I head up the Kyushu train. It gave the people who work in those departments or business units, as we now call them, an opportunity to learn about SAFe. We didn't want anyone feeling left out. Everyone, wants to work in an agile organisation these days. So aside from the organisational benefit we've got from creating a train for corporate services, it's really engaged many, to be honest, not all, but many of the people in the shared services world for our group. And we're delivering far more than we ever had before, and really leading some transformational change on our back-end systems, our move to the cloud, our security, all has a cadence, and our delivery has absolutely increased. And the quality of product that the train delivers has gone through the roof. Our CFO is very open to SAFE. He funds value streams these days. So he has broken down the traditional project cost accounting model that many of us are used to. And he looks at it that he spends X million of dollars on each of these trains, and he doesn't look below that. He's not interested. He's working with our Kaisen Express train on trying to understand what a story point is and how to relate that to funding, and is trying very hard to adopt a lean accounting type model in the organisation. And credit to him that he's been open to that type of change, and certainly his team members come to PI planning. They're also learning to work in SAFE models or an agile model. We have teams inside corporate services now that are cross-functional. So we have 2, 3 teams on co-issue, and each team has representatives from finance, HR, customer experience, technology. And we are seeing that generally the team members are happier because we gave them that opportunity.
Mark, another question.
Yes, we are.
You can't go through a journey like this without pain, right? You can't. It's not possible. So where was your biggest pain, and therefore your biggest opportunity? You talked about this is a happier place to work from a culture perspective. Your financial results have improved. You are at least you're not going south in terms of market share. In fact, it's going up slowly. I'm hearing wonderful, wonderful benefits, but I'm really interested to know, where was your biggest pain and your biggest opportunity that kind of broke the back of this, and how did you do it?
Our biggest pain outside of not delivering a good product, I would suggest, and Adrian, if you've got an opinion on this, please jump in here, was internally with people. This was a massive cultural shift from an organisation that had worked the same way for 24 years at that point. Some people had been there since day one, highly resistant to change, some very deep relationships and friendships within the organisation that in some cases had to break. The people impact was very difficult. Not so much when we first launched, interestingly. Em and Adrian did say that this would happen, and I guess it's like any change. You put in a new system, the first couple of weeks you love it. Normally week 4 to 6 are pretty much horrific. And then after a couple of months you come out, so you get that J curve. We had the same thing. Magnificent launch, and we'll show some photos shortly about the launch of our first train. Lots of energy, lots of positivity. We did all of the right things around training, and everyone was trained that was on the train. But about halfway through PI2, things started to slip. You know, this is no good. It's not working for us. We want to go back to the old way. It was so much better, blah, blah, blah. And pushing through from the middle of PI2 to the end of PI4 was hard. There were doubters emerging in different areas of the organisation, and there were some moments, to be honest, where I thought it was going to fail. And I'd have to say they were some pretty dark days where I thought, I don't think we're going to get there. And we had some very open discussions with the CEO, and he was open to the discussion for the first time, to listen to the feedback, but he committed to see it through. And we're now in PI 7 and absolutely flying.
That's brilliant, Mark. I thought that would have been my hypothesis, you know, given the culture of the organization, where they were and where they're going to on this journey of transformational change. I knew the people impact is massive. And so to take people from where they were to where they need to go, and on that journey, there is pain. But you have to go through that pain barrier to get to the other side. So it sounds like you guys were quite relentless in your, as you said, committed. The CEO was committed. That's probably very good news. And in the people change, I assume there was strong org change, people change kind of people embedded in these trains to make sure those things were, the resistance to change was being actively managed. Compassion provided, support provided, but it's almost like the train's taken off, guys. You need to get on it. You know, it's left. So there's a bit of that too, a bit of push and pull going on, right?
Yeah, absolutely true, and that's a very good point. We did have those that resisted. As I said, a number of them have now gone, and there were the others that were smart enough to realise that, hang on, this is the way of the future. You pick up any article in technology and talks about agile, it's either get on board or get left behind. You'll be left at the station. And some jumped on real quick, others needed to be prodded.
Yeah, and you know, let's face it, life is like this, you know, it's not for everyone, right? And so people who don't want to believe in the future, don't want it, not you know, they will leave at their own accord, because they'll see most people have got on board, and you know, they have a choice. People have a choice ultimately. And if you can take 70, 80% of your workforce to the new world, that's success to me, because you're not going to get 100. I promise you that right now.
Absolutely true.
Okay, that's good, Mark. Thank you.
Mark, also got a question from Ellie in the chat. Any tips on how you got the change in CFO/finance department?
Tony, the CFO, and he was completely frustrated with our incompetence. He's open, he's technically savvy as a CFO. He understands technology, which is helpful. Open to new ways of thinking, and wanted to try something different. And he was a very big supporter from day one. So the change with the CFO was easy. Less so with HR. I hope my GM of HR is not sitting on this call, otherwise I'm in trouble. I might be reaching out to the group for a new job.
That's interesting. I find HR interesting, isn't it? They're the people guys, and yet they're the worst culprits, in my opinion, and experience.
Yes, in this case, it was more difficult. The CFO was literally pulling his hair out, what's left of it, and was willing to try anything, and believed that this could be successful and different. So it wasn't overly hard, to be honest. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think if I was to reflect on Tony's engagement, one of the things that stands out for me is he sat through Leading Safe with us when we ran that initial executive Leading Safe, and he was engaged and he participated and he took notes and he asked questions. So you know, often people don't get the finance person in the room. So I think that's part of the challenge. And I think some part of it is Tony's personality. There's also some part of it that you got him committed and you got him in the room, and that makes such a difference.
One thing I wanted to talk about just quickly is e-prescribing. We were, and this in the retrospective, but I'll do it now, is we were absolutely hopeless at portfolio management. The most embarrassing meeting of my 2 days of my life, I think, from a professional perspective, was going through an LPM workshop about a year ago with Em and Adrian. It was truly, truly horrific. But on the
lots of good stories out of it, Mark.
I'm sure you have. I think I could hold a breakfast seminar just on LPM. But what was interesting, about 6 months ago when COVID hit us, there was a moment in one of our LPM meetings, and we were atrocious at them, where we had the decision, the government had called us, they wanted to do e-prescribing, reduce the risks of, you know, sick people going, and unfortunately, you know, people do get very, very ill. We have, our customers have cancer and other autoimmune diseases. Going into a pharmacy and catching COVID will kill them. So the government was very supportive in terms of getting e-prescribing into market. So there was an LPM meeting. The CEO, I've got to have e-prescribing. Yeah. But on the same time, he was saying, oh, I want X done, I want Y done, I want blah. And in the old days, it all just would have got piled in, would have been chaos. People would have worked 100 hours a week. I think Richard Blunt's on the call, and he remembers the bad old days where certainly we worked a few 100-hour weeks together. And when it came to the hard decision moment for, okay, do we stop doing normal work that we do for dispense, I'll say as an example, and focus on e-prescribing, everybody in the LPM meeting, which is about 20 people, went quiet. Not one person said anything. And we waited for the CEO to make a decision. And it was the first time I saw in the organisation a hard call be made that needed to be made, and we stuck to it. And that was because of SAFE. Before, it just would have got turned into the mixing bowl, and we would have popped something out that was pretty ordinary, to be honest. E-prescribing works. And what was fascinating was the cultural change where the organisation waited and stopped and said, no, the CEO's got to make the tough call. We're going to disappoint some customers in dispense, but we're going to deliver a product that will help save lives. You can't have both. And SAFE gave us the visibility of the Kanban boards, portfolio, epics, to say, you can't have both of these. You have to choose one. That's what you're paid for. Make the big call. To his credit, the silence went on for over a minute. It was, and I think that was the moment, this was back in March, that the organisation changed. And that's where SAFE became, we came out at the bottom of, we're not sure about this, and took off. And if you ever needed that, I'll certainly remember that for the rest of my career, where what a change in an organisation. And credit to everyone in the room, rather than the old days, we would have thought about it, we all went quiet. So here's a fun slide, if you like. This was the launch of Kaisen. It took us nearly a month, I think, Em, correct me if I'm wrong, to plan for our launch event. Is that about right?
We actually ended up spending almost 6 months planning your launch event.
Yes, the whole journey to SAFE took about 6 months, but the actual launch day took about a month. Yes, that was 6 months of work to go from M come help us to the day we launched. You'll notice in the top right there's a dragon. Richard brought a dragon in. All of the GMs are actually hidden under there. Let me tell you, I never want to be that close to another one of my fellow GMs again. We ran around the whole room. There was about 100 people there. You can see there's plenty of junk food sitting on the tables. It went for 2 days. It was a long 2 days, but very good energy. The CEO spoke. The GMs who owned the train spoke. We did everything that you're supposed to do. It was a great day, a great 2 days, I beg your pardon. We hired a special room, spent a fortune on post-it notes and string, all of the things that you would do in SAFE or Agile, lots of sticky blue tack, lots of noise. You couldn't hear yourself think at about 2 o'clock. Went home with a headache. All of the things that Em and the team will tell you, yes, it happened to us. I'm happy to say that probably PI planning number 3 was not so good. But after that, it's come back with a roar, and we've learnt to plan and prepare better for our PI launches. We go into them far more organised. The teams are more aware of what they need to do. They run extremely efficiently. And we still do them in about a day and a half to 2 days. There was a push at one stage to do it to a day, and at which I can't tell you the exact words that she called me. It would offend some people. We stuck at it. I must admit there was a bit of politics going on there, but we held true. And our PI days, and we do different PI days for our different trains, are incredibly successful and have made a major difference. But having the CEO run around in a dragon's uniform along with the rest of the leaders to music, you can actually see it on YouTube.
We posted it somewhere, didn't we?
You did. And, you know, we did it out of the book, and it was a great couple of days.
Mark, just quickly, if it's just an appropriate time, obviously, you know, the COVID situation, less post-it notes and string. What happened at Fred when you couldn't get together without getting fined?
We were an organisation that didn't support work from home at all, and within 2 weeks we completely moved 250 people and built the back-end infrastructure to support work from home. We went to Miro, and that has been incredibly successful, incredibly productive and incredibly efficient, and people enjoy using it. Also a benefit is it's cheaper to run remote PI planning. We're not flying people around, so the planet is a little bit greener, less carbon in the air. We're not wasting money on taxis and disbursements. And by having, and credit to Rich, I can't remember if Rich is on this call, to Rich and the team, who put a lot of planning, oh, he's here, great, who put a lot of effort into planning with how we would do a remote PI planning sessions. And they've gone fine. We adjusted. Definitely the technology, the tool, it helped.
So a couple more questions here from Ali. First one, is there any coordination required between the 3 trains, or can they all run independently?
Thanks, Ali. That's something we're not doing very well. We're getting better. We don't have a solution train. We're far too small for a solution train to be complete overkill. We're learning to get the trains aligned, and where there's cross dependencies. Certainly running the PI planning for the different trains on different days has helped. We did that for the first time this increment, and that's worked well because it allows people to go to the different events, so you get that collaboration occurring. Long term, will we end up with 3 trains? No, we're too small for 3 trains. I think we'll end up with, we could be 1 train. Would probably be 2. I think if I was to do this presentation again in a year, we'll be down to 2 trains.
We'll hold you to that, Mark.
Beg your pardon?
We'll hold you to that.
Okay, done.
Another couple questions for you, Mark. What kind of people make up your LPM meeting?
Most of the GMs, the CEO, the CFO, portfolio manager, architect, ISO.
How many people? 10-ish?
No, it's grown a little bit, which in itself is a problem. It's 15 to 20, probably 15. But adding architecture and security kind of gave us a more rounded view of what needed to be done.
You've got all the architects there, do you?
Yeah, a number of them, and we're becoming more architecturally led as an organisation, so which is a massive change from a year ago. We didn't have an architecture team a year ago. We do now. We have an enterprise architect, and a couple of system architects and cloud system engineers.
One more question for you, Mark. Are you using a Kanban board in the LPM meeting?
Yes, we are. We have a portfolio Kanban. All the portfolio managers of the train present their Kanban board, and we don't. We did slip into a problem once we kind of got the feel for LPM. of making it a status meeting. Thankfully, that stopped, and now it is about making the decisions on which epics go through the system, and key decision points and stage gates, and about the governance of our epics through the system. It's not about status updates. Some of the meetings started to slip out to an hour and a half, when that's when we knew we were in trouble. Had some conversations with Tony, the CFO, and the one we had last week went for about 40 minutes. So we're getting that lovely rhythm going of what are the topics we need to discuss. People are prepared. We come together, talk about the epics that need to be talked about, and we assume that everything else is fine.
Thanks, Mark. I'll let you continue.
We had, before SAFE, absolutely no metrics captured at all. Kaisen has done an outstanding job, and the leadership on the train of capturing metrics. We use Azure DevOps as our tool. I could spend a whole session talking about, well, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do a very good job of it. The visibility of what we can see and SAFE's brought to the table is fantastic. And it's not about beating team members up or teams, about one team A versus team B. I did notice a bit of that in the dark days where I thought SAFE was going to disappear a bit. Thankfully, that went away. It's all about improving. It's all about understanding the system and looking for the weaknesses and opportunities for improvement. And the team has done a fantastic job of capturing and reporting the metrics on regular intervals. So what worked well, and this is the part I welcome some different opinions, different experiences. This is what worked well for us from the team's perspective: transparency, PR planning. We're closer to our customers. I think we could do a lot more in that space. We went feature-based teams. It's worked well. There's a couple of examples where probably if we go on component teams, probably would have been better, but for the moment we're feature teams. Much clearer accountability, a lot less fighting. It's a much happier place to go to work, and visibility. We can see everything. There are no secrets, because if it's all out in the open, people can make informed decisions. SAFE itself, the Kanban boards, again, links into the visibility, were brilliant, or are brilliant. Credit to the team at Pretty Agile. They brought industry best knowledge. They brought their previous successes and experience. We selected M because of the experience that her and her team brought to the table, but also we knew that we needed to break some of those ivory towers, and certainly M was not afraid to call it when she needed to call it, and that worked really well for us. We took SAFE off the shelf. We used SAFE terminology. We all were trained in SAFE. I think we have 60 or 70 people with some form of SAFE training above just the leading SAFE level. So product managers are all trained, architects are all trained. We have 3 or 4 SPCs. It was absolutely crucial to our success, and everybody speaks SAFE language. So when we say an increment, everyone understands what an increment is, iterations, all of the lingo we've used, and it's given the business a new language. A new way of working, as I said, off the shelf. The executives, credit to the board and the CEO. I couldn't have led this change without that support, and it came from the top down. And the CEO knew that his business was in trouble and that he needed to change. It was a 12 to 18 month journey. I think we're only just starting to see the real benefits. Prescribing e-scripts is an example of, we couldn't have done that before. We got good quality product out the door. It's costing less to do more. Yes, we're not doing amazingly well, but there is no doubt we're actually a smaller number of people producing more product at a better quality product. And we're only just starting to see that come through. And I'd love to see where we are in a year from now. Clear accountability, we absolutely got that. So for example, before back office, corporate systems and networking was mixed in with operations who were trying to look after customer product, which of course meant, guess what happened to our internal applications? They never got any focus because the customer will always win. Where I look after that with Tony. Silos, as we saw, we took our organisation that was like that, tipped it on its head, silos gone. Little asterisks, did we create 3 silos instead of 8? There is a little bit of that, and certainly I know some other organisations that I've talked to have seen that, where some of the silos get created at the train level. So that is certainly something to watch for. We all talk story points, dependencies, our estimation's improving, although got a lot of work to go. Azure DevOps, what a tool. Microsoft are improving that every day. And 2 years ago, it didn't really work well with Safe. Now it has Safe add-ons that you can get. So it's fantastic. The technology overall, having a dedicated centralized architecture team. We've gone from an organisation that, I kid you not, when we originally had an enterprise architect in the restructure, why would we need that and what's that for, to an architecture team of 5. We now have an ISO, we have SecOps, we have enterprise applications roadmaps. We've gone from 60 applications, believe it or not, that we used to run the organisation, and 3 general ledger systems to 1. And overall our end game is looking at about a dozen applications. So it's made us a much simpler processes, work much more cleanly. It's costing a lot less to run because we're not paying for a whole lot of licensing that we wasted. Separating product away from corporate technology has been an absolute win. And we're rationalising our tools. Teams, Miro, Asdo are the key tools to run product. Now, it didn't work so well. I think I'm running right on time. Or areas for improvement, perhaps is a nicer way of saying it. Product managers still aren't close enough to the customer. They're far too, granted it's a little difficult in a COVID world, but they should be out in the customer stores more. They should be talking to the customers, talk to the customer's customer, really spending more time. And personally, I'd like to see them out of the office 2 or 3 days a week, in the old world, if you like, in the market, dealing with the customers, understanding their problems, and learning. The best way, as we all know, to innovate is to actually listen to your customer, because they'll come up with the best ideas. Portfolio management, as I said, was a basket case a year ago. Michael, our portfolio manager, has really just grounded out on continuous improvement, and the LPM meetings really do operate well most of the time. Not always, but most of the time. We're getting better at guardrails, although there was an interesting story where we lost 20 minutes of an LPM meeting talking about 5% on a guardrail. There's an example where, come on, we haven't got this right yet. I was literally pulling my hair out. I wanted to take my headphones off and throw them across the street, quite frankly. We are seeing some improvement in terms of velocity, but there are other reasons why velocity is not going as well as it could. Our trade leadership is too big and too many people in it, and unfortunately it's getting bigger. So that is an area that we're going to have to work on, because too many people, stop laughing again, too many people, too many opinions, and again, slipping into who's going to make the decision. So that does need to be looked at again. And we are seeing some confusing role duplication, and there is a little bit of structural issue where we've got 2 divisions on a train and some role duplication. And that's not to say we want to have those people leave. We actually want them doing what they are probably really good at and would make them happier and increase our delivery. So it would be really nice to peel the Band-Aid off on that, but you know, it can't be perfect, I guess. Operations, and in terms of SAFe, what did we find? Operations, incident management, problem management is something that SAFe doesn't really touch on very well. I think SAFe 5 is doing better. Project work, we struggled to, and that's one reason why eHealth is not on SAFe yet. We haven't quite cracked that nut. It is expensive. Now, what's expensive? Expensive is different to everybody. We did invest a lot of money. However, the value we received has paid for itself 5 times over. But training all of those people, the consultants paying SAFe themselves, it adds up. Release management, I think there's another 2 years worth of work there. Excuse me. Problem management, as defined by ITIL, where is that in SAFe and how does that work? Not sure. And our purpose of Scrum Masters, that was about a year where the organisation was, why do we need Scrum Masters? What are they for? Lots of politics, and credit to Rich and the Scrum Master team. They just kept at it. I think, yes, I've got at least 2 Scrum Masters on this call. They just kept grinding away, and we wouldn't be in the place we are without our Scrum Masters. But getting the organisation to understand their role, and something we didn't do well, or I didn't do well, is define that better up front. And I would put a lot more work into that if I was to do it again.
A couple more questions for you, Mark. You mentioned GMs for each train. Are they equivalent to business owners in SAFe, or do you have those also?
Well done, whoever asked that question. You've gone right to the heart of one of the problems. They are the equivalent of the business owners, and there is an issue where we have 2 business owners on one train. You get a bit of conflict there. It is getting better, but an issue. So yes, a GM equals a SAFe business owner.
One more for you, Mark. Do you have product management and product ownership, and is that working well?
Yes, we have product management and we have product owners. Every team has a product owner. The product owners have absolutely stepped up and done a really good job. A lot of effort in upskilling them, none of it wasted. Our product managers, we have 3 product managers, 2 on Kaisen and 1 on eHealth, soon to be 2. But there's still more work to do. Still too focused on the technology and playing with the product, not enough time talking to our customer and out selling roadmaps. I had a product manager come in from Alien Vault about a year ago, and it was I was like, that was the best example of a product manager I've ever seen. They came in, they talked about their roadmap, they asked about our problems, wanted to see how we were using the product, suggested some improvements, took away an idea, and 6 months later it was in the product, and let us know it was going. I was like, can we have one of those, please? I hope none of the product managers are on this call, because I've just created a problem.
A couple more coming through as you're talking. I think this is are you hiring? Do you have opportunities, requirements for Scrum Masters?
No, hopefully that means that people are enjoying the conversation of the presentation. No, I don't unfortunately have any opportunities at the moment. I'm very happy with our Scrum Masters that we have working for us today.
Next question, do you have a program manager in place?
We don't have a program manager. We have 2 release train engineers, Richard Lunt, no one goes stealing him, is our RTE, has fully embraced and adopted SAFe. So to me, and I don't want to disparage any program managers, but in a SAFe world, I don't think there is a program manager. Correct me if I'm wrong, Em.
No, good.
Our RTEs are our program managers. an incredibly important position and a tough job, and requires great people skill and a great and deep understanding of SAFe, and an understanding of the vision of the company, and an ability to stand his or her ground when required. And to me, that's what would make a great RTE, and certainly Rich embodies all of those attributes.
And one more for you. Do you have an organisational change manager?
Does that come from Emma? No, we don't. We're probably a bit small. Did we need it? Perhaps we did. But also, I think our organisational change manager was actually Em herself, by driving us hard, and we needed that push. So no, we didn't have that. But again, if you're a company much larger or a big corporate, then yes, you are going to need those things. It would have been helpful around comms and dealing with that piece around change. Would have been great to have an extra resource there.
All right, you've exhausted them. You got some more points on your slide here, Mark?
I do. DevSecOps, the journey that is, we're only just beginning, 2 years worth of work on that. Timesheets, we kind of have them, kind of don't. They're in Excel, not in Excel. With the CEO's support, they're hopefully going away. Value stream funding doesn't need a timesheet. The only time we really need a timesheet is for billing customers. Not sure what to do in that space. Welcome if anyone's got ideas. Technical debt, we have a mountain. Was the size of Everest. It's probably the size of Kilimanjaro now. Probably another 5 years worth of work there. CI/CD pipeline, eHealth have absolutely smashed this area. The Kaisen train is only just starting to learn how to do that. We haven't really nailed our system team, and that's going to require probably 12 to 18 months worth of hard work in that space. Does pay dividends though. When you get your pipeline going, at the moment we have pipelines. The vision, I think, is to try and get to one pipeline, being the train track, and then that classic model. I break it down very simply that your pipeline is your train track. When features are ready, you just pop it on and out it goes. We're not that good. eHealth can pretty much do that. And if we could have one pipeline for all of our products in the organisation, our efficiency would go through the roof, and our quality would too. And it helps you with things like security as well, and best practice. So, for example, in Azure, you can turn on ISO 271 checks automatically in your pipeline. Architecture, it was something that was non-existent, as I said, 18 months ago. What's an enterprise architect? Why do we need that? To an enterprise architect, he's a chief architect. Doesn't like the title enterprise. With a highly capable architecture team that we interviewed well over 40 candidates and put them through the ringer really, really hard. The work, the demonstrations that they had to do to us were unlike anything I've ever seen before. They were the hardest interviews I'd ever done in my life, but they paid dividends where we've got very, very high caliber individuals, and they've all been signed up for SAFe and trained in SAFe. So it is an opportunity still for improvement, but we've come a long way, and significant investment in architecture in terms of salaries. But we're getting that back in spades. Metrics, are we measuring the right things? Only just starting the journey with OKRs. I think we'll do much better with that in the next year's strategy planning, and organisational data management's a real issue for us. More because we just don't have the time to spend on it. So, down the bottom, sorry. Executives, we're still learning to make decisions, getting a lot better. Product strategy in one area of the business still remains problematic. Our quality commitment wavers, but I'd say in the most recent increments, it's got better. And having a single art, which I should change that actually, it's not right. Single art with two organisational business units isn't working well and should be addressed. But that's somewhat politically sensitive. So that's our story. Questions? Em, open the floor.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing, Mark. Really, so we've got about just shy of 15 minutes on the clock, folks. If you have questions for Mark, I can see some of his team on the phone as well.
You don't have to type them. You can. I'm imagining you can unmute and let's go for free for all.
Mark, how big is your organisation and how many teams do you have in each train?
Our organisation is about 250 people. Kaisen's the big train with six teams, 4 feature teams, a component team or 2, and the system team. I'm sure Rich might be wanting to sort out my numbers for me there, but that's about the size of it. Co-issue's only tiny, 2 teams, but we're not a big corporate services given the size of our organisation. It could easily scale. That's the joy of SAFE. I could see that if we're a big corporate, you could just put 8, 10 teams in the corporate services train and operate in the same way.
Thanks so much for sharing. If you had 3 key tips that you would say are mandatory, need to be done or should have been done at the start, what would they be?
For someone who's about to start or from our experience?
For someone who's about to start. Oh, okay. Both.
All right, if you're about to start, absolutely that we all hear it, the executive level support, both from angles like politically, financially, the support to keep going when it gets hard. I must admit there were a few times I was ready to run away and give up. It got pretty tough sometimes. So that's a fundamental. Having that vision and purpose and committing to it as well. We wanted to do better. We had to do better for the organisation. We wanted to have one way of working. We wanted to stop the arguments. We wanted to stop the fights. We wanted to produce a better quality product for our customer. And coming back to the organisation's vision, it's about making dispensing of drugs safer for the community. And as we now see, we save lives because of what we do. And e-prescriptions could never have been done without that change to SAFE and that single-minded purpose about we're doing this because we want to be a better organisation, and no one individual is bigger than the organisation, including the CEO. And that was vital. The third part, and Em still owes me that bottle of wine from last time I said this, using experts and not thinking that we know better. We listened to the advice, we took the advice, sometimes we disagreed with it, but we still did it. Most of the time it worked. Em and I have had a few frank and hard conversations, but that's why it works. Choose your partner to help you, get trained, because that ensures that the team members all start talking the same language. They feel committed to it. You've invested in them. All of the soft things that you get by giving training, and they're the things that work for us, and that's where I suggest other people would start. For us internally, the other big thing was no ivory towers. No one was bigger than the organisation, and it took time, but those who don't believe or didn't believe have left, and we're a better organisation for it.